as many other Egyptian deities, Sekhmet, whose name means mighty one or powerful feminine, had two different aspects, one protective and healing, the other destructive and retaliating. She was said to have an awesome appearance, her weapons being arrows with which she pierces hearts. Her body was said to spread a fiery glow. Her breath was associated with the hot winds of the desert. But she was also called Great of Magic or Mistress of Life and was a goddess of healing and surgery. As well as spreading pestilence, she was believed to be able to cure it. Names. An early name for her was the Eye of Re or Daughter of Re, which shows her solar association and thereby her association with the king. She is the most important one of the several manifestations of the Eye of Re. This association she shared especially with Hathor and several other deities like Aset, Tefnut, Bast and Mut. She was also often called Mother of the King. Already in the pyramid texts it says that she conceived the king. She followed him in battle, protecting him, and her rage induced the king acute accent's victory over enemies. Her title of Lady of Bright Red Linen carries the meaning both of her place of origin in the Delta, as well as the blood-soaked garments of conquered enemies. Worship. Physicians were priests of Sekhmet. This goes back to at least the Old Kingdom, when they were already organized for her service. It seems they still held their position in later times. Prayers to the goddess were an integral part of every healing ministration. There was even a formal rite called appeasing Sekhmet, which was recited by priests in effort to stop epidemics from spreading. Among common people there was a great fear of the 7 arrows of Sekhmet, which were believed to bring in luck. Many spells and charms were used to avert the wrath of Sekhmet, and there was the book of the last day of the year which was recited over a piece of cloth worn around the neck at the end of a year, which was considered a dangerous period. On the first day of the new year, Wapranpat, people exchanged amulets in the form of Sekhmet or Bast for appeasing them. Still today, statues of Sekhmet can invoke some apprehension, even in museums. In the small temple of Tahat Karnak, there is a statue of Sekhmet holding a scepter in her hand, looking quite impressive. Depictions. Sekhmet was mostly depicted in anthropomorphic form, as a seated woman with a line acute accent's face. She wore a wig and a sundisk on top of her head, and there is often a scepter in her hand. There are also depictions of lion-headed goddesses wearing the double crown. This is usually a fusion of Sekhmet with Mut. More seldom is she represented in full leonine form. Myth. Her destructive aspect is demonstrated in the myth The Destruction of Mankind, as she on the order of Re goes out to punish mankind for their transgressions against him. The breath of Sekhmet is here described as being of fire, and the host winds from the desert was called the breath of Sekhmet. In her rage and bloodthirst she nearly wipes out all humans, and Re has to ask his high priest at Heliopolis to mix beer with the color ochre from elephantine. Many thousands of this red beer was placed out over the lands, and believing it is blood, Sekhmet drank of it, got so drunk she fell asleep, and when she woke up, her rage was gone. There are several versions of this myth in tombs at Thebes. Because of this fierceness, many ancient kings adopted her as a military patroness, and she became their symbol in battle. Here her duality can be demonstrated in that she used her power to protect the king in an almost motherly way. Already in the pyramid texts it is said that Sekhmet conceived the king. Associations. With her consort Tah and their son Nefertum she made up the Memphite tribe. Here she absorbed several other, minor deities, and was called Mistress of Ankhtai, meaning Mistress of the Two Lands. As the Eye of Re, she was associated with Hathor, who also bore this title. At Waset, Grams, Thebes, she was associated with Mut, the consort of Ammon. This manifested the aggressive side of Mut, or a counterpart of this deity. Sekhmet was also associated with Bast, perhaps also here because of her fierce side. When Thebes was the seat of royal residence, 11th Dine, the local goddess Mut was merged with her. At the precinct of Mut at Karnak, hundreds of statues of Sekhmet were erected, either in a sitting position, holding the ankh in her hand, or standing, with a scepter in the form of a papyrus plant by her side. It is believed that these many statues were honored with offerings, each of them on a specific day of the year. During the Middle Kingdom, Sekhmet was also associated with the more or less local leonine goddess Pakhet at Beni Hassan in Middle Egypt. Cult centers. Her main cult center was in Mennefer, Grams, Memphis, but there were many temples and shrines erected to her all throughout Egypt and all the time into the Greco-Roman period. Through her association with other deities, special temples, like the one for Sekhmet Hathor at Kam el Hisna, were also built.